Hello pinball fans and enthusiasts, young and old. Next Level Taken here, and I'm doing a little comparison video on Pinball FX3 and Pinball Arcade. Farsight Zen Studios runs Pinball FX3, formerly Zen Pinball 2, and Farsight has Pinball Arcade and Stern Pinball of recent note. I have put together 3 clips here, and what you're going to see is gameplay first from Pinball Arcade. This is all running on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro. This is Pinball Arcade in the first clip. In the second clip, it's Pinball FX3. The third and final clip is also Pinball FX3, but it's the digitally altered version, the upgraded version, meaning you can get higher point scores because you can rewind time and things like that, extra upgrade bonuses that you can unlock. And also you've got things like the dragon moves around. It's computer generated, digitally altered, pretty much the same table, but there are differences as far as the animations go, and again you can get higher point totals. As far as graphics goes, both games do a good job of giving you multiple camera angles to cycle through, so you can find one that you're comfortable with. I'm not really ecstatic about the default angle on either version, and I've changed it slightly to the second or third option for both. I know there's some already giving the nod to Pinball FX3 and saying the graphics look better on that version of Medieval Madness, and the reason I'm comparing Medieval Madness is because that game is featured on both right now. Fishtails is as well, and so is Junkyard and High Speed, but I don't have those versions on Pinball Arcade. I do have Medieval Madness, so I'm able to compare that one. The graphics look sharp on both models, whether you're playing the Pinball FX model or you're playing Pinball Arcade, Farsight or Zen. They look nearly identical. I don't know how some are giving the edge to Pinball FX3. To me, they're almost indiscernible. I mean, if you put them side by side, I almost can't tell which is which. The Zen Studios version might look a little brighter, but again, they're pretty similar. Now, as far as the upgraded model version is concerned, you really can't compare the two because, again, this is dealing with digital alterations. I'm surprised they allowed them to work on a newer upgraded model of the same game. I believe that Farsight wasn't allowed to even touch the ROM in any kind of way, so it's interesting that they were given the freedom to upgrade it, enhance it, if you will. But the table pretty much plays the same way anyway, so it doesn't make too much of a difference. But graphically, both versions are nearly identical. Again, you have to give the nod to Pinball FX3 because they have an upgraded model, an upgraded version. But for some, that's going to turn some off with the point totals in the way and the dragon flying around the screen, things of that nature. That kind of thing doesn't bother me, but I can definitely see how it can annoy some, especially old school pinball players. For the longest time, people would criticize Zen Studios for having a more arcadey feel to their pinball tables, but I can see why. These weren't real tables. Pinball Arcade was more the real thing, but now that they're both working with real tables and the same tables, I have to actually give the nod to a slight nod to Pinball FX. Going back and playing Pinball Arcade, Farsight's version of Medieval Madness just feels a little bit, the ball feels a little bit more floaty. It's kind of hard to describe, and you'd have to play it for yourself to see the difference, and it's a real small difference, but the ball just feels just a slightly more floaty in Farsight's version of Medieval Madness, the one that I'm playing in Pinball Arcade. In Pinball FX3, the ball feels like it has a little bit more weight to it, and it does take some getting used to. I'm so used to the Pinball Arcade version that I'm performing a lot worse in the Zen Studios version of this. But with that said, once I get used to the controls, it's negligible any real difference. The two games are pretty similar, and overall it's still the same game. Now, if you have any issues with the flippers or the buttons or anything, the accessibility, Xbox One and PS4, again, you can always change up the buttons, so you shouldn't have really any issues. I prefer to use the trigger buttons for my flippers. So either whether you use R1 or R2 or what have you, or the right bumper, left bumper, right trigger, right bumper, that's up to you really. But the controls are pretty similar. The audio, the graphics, everything is pretty similar. Zen has the edge as far as the tables are upgraded in the new version, so you can play that. And again, you can get a higher score because you have upgrades. For some that don't care about that, again, you have the original versions of the tables there as well, so you really have no way to play them, and they have different leaderboards for both. So it's pretty cool. Again, this is Pinball Arcade right here that you're watching, and now this is Zen Studios version of Medieval Madness. This is the non-upgraded version. Let's look at some of the different camera angles here. I prefer view 2, but I mean, you're pretty much able to use whatever view you like, whatever view you're accustomed to. And it definitely takes some getting used to, as you can see here by my early gameplay, but once I got used to the fishtail tables, I did a lot better. I think I put a video up where I got about 17, 18 million, and then a couple games later I got 68 million. And I mean, I've seen people get hundreds of million already on fishtails, so I'm still lagging behind. But what I'm trying to get at is, it's once you get past the slight learning curve, it's still pinball. It's still the tables that some of you are already familiar with, and there's not much of a difference. I do have to favor Zen Studios pinball pricing models. I think Farsight got a little greedy and was charging a bit too much per table, and then the fact that if they wouldn't carry over. I mean, that's kind of a moot point at this point because the Vita's dead and the PS3's dead, but Zen Studios was more forgiving in the fact that if I bought a table on PS3, it would carry over to the Vita and it would carry over to the PS4. As Farsight wanted to make me buy the same pinball table 3 times over, which was a little bit ridiculous. Well, this was never meant to be a review, and it's just a comparison, and I really haven't had enough playtime with the Pinball FX3 version of Medieval Madness. I would say both seem pretty arcade accurate as far as pinball goes. You're never going to get a total authentic pinball experience in a video game. For that, you're just going to have to play it on a real pinball table. But with that said, both games are highly enjoyable. I think it's a great time to be a pinball fan right now. You can't go wrong. Obviously, you can't buy Medieval Madness digitally anymore on Pinball Arcade unless you have a physical copy. But with that said, I hope both companies continue to do big things. I hope we see more Stern tables and perhaps other tables from the people that make Pinball Arcade, Farsight. And I hope Zen Studios continues to thrive. And I hope you enjoy this brief look and this comparison of both titles and the gameplay. Still to come is the upgraded version of Medieval Madness here on Pinball FX3, and that's coming up next. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, especially if you want to see more of this type of thing on my channel. And especially if you want to see more retro gaming goodness. It's been Next Level Taken. I bid you adieu. Until next time.
Shoot the castle! Go! Go! Go!
my men will destroy you.
I am the Earl of Eagle. Behold my scepter. My people grow thin, lowly peasant. Merlin magic. Ah, here it is. My glory, I will reduce you to French fries. You are thin and sticky than goat cheese. You cannot fight or cook. How tasteless! Get the extra ball! It's trouble! Sir Mix-a-Lot charges the center lane. Oh, I knew someone would invent a gun. Shoot again! Nice move by Sir Lancelot. I'm gonna waste you. You've got a lot of nerve, pal. Oh, I wish someone would invent a gun. They took our chickens! Sir Lancelot with the lead. Boom! Shakalaka. Look out! There might be trolls about.